Slough House is the most despised unit in Britain's MI5. Compared to headquarters, it's rundown and neglected. Everyone sent there has committed serious mistakes, effectively exiled to this dead-end division. Of course, none of them are willing to accept such a downfall. Soon, a kidnapping plot, tied to a massive conspiracy, shakes the entire city, and shockingly, this team of losers starts delivering one surprise after another. One day, MI5 receives classified intelligence. A terrorist is planning to bomb an airport. Senior officials take it very seriously, and Deputy Director Diana Taverner personally arrives to oversee the operation. Agent River Cartwright is assigned to the mission. Wearing an earpiece, tense and alert, he scans the crowd for the suspect. Diana's aide, Webb, provides the description: an Asian male in his 20s, wearing a light blue shirt over a white t-shirt, carrying a backpack. River quickly spots a man waiting for a flight who matches the description. Surrounding agents stand by, ready to move. Just then, a janitor walks past, blocking their view. When the janitor leaves, River sees the man pulling at his backpack zipper, possibly reaching for a bomb trigger. Meanwhile, boarding begins, and passengers start lining up. Diana hesitates, afraid of collateral damage if they move too soon. River grows increasingly anxious as the suspect disappears into the crowd and down an escalator. At last, Diana gives the order. River and his team rush in and tackle the man. To River's shock, there's no bomb. The backpack is empty of anything suspicious. Confused, River recalls Webb's earlier description: blue shirt, white t-shirt, but now Webb insists it was white shirt, blue t-shirt. River is certain he didn't mishear. Webb must have made a mistake, but there's no time to argue. The real suspect is still out there. Soon, CCTV picks up another young man, blue t-shirt, white shirt on top, black backpack, an exact match. As he heads deeper into the terminal, Diana orders her team to prepare for an arrest. Because of River's earlier blunder, however, she pulls him off the mission. But River, stubborn and reckless, refuses to back down. Convinced he's right, he steals an airport command vehicle and speeds toward the baggage area, following live updates through his earpiece. His reckless actions trigger a full-scale security response. Now, River is on his own inside the terminal, chasing the suspect through the crowds. He shoves past passengers, even knocking over security staff who try to stop him, flashing his badge as proof of identity before pressing on. Then, CCTV reveals the suspect has entered the restroom. Diana suspects he's preparing the bomb and immediately orders the entire airport into emergency lockdown. When the alarm blared through the airport, chaos erupted. Terrified passengers scattered in every direction, leaving River momentarily paralyzed. Then, through the panic, he finally spotted his target. The suspect was moving quickly toward the escalator. Determined not to lose him, River gave chase, charging up an escalator that was running the opposite way. Out in the terminal, it became a full-on game of cat and mouse. The blaring alarm only made the suspect move faster. After racing down a long corridor, River was about to close in when a police officer, clueless about the situation, blocked his path. With no time to explain, River tackled him to the ground and sprinted on. The chase spilled into the subway station. As a train pulled into the platform, the suspect stopped in his tracks. River drew his gun, shouting for him not to make a move, but the man just flashed a sly grin and pressed the detonator. The result was catastrophic: 149 dead, 212 injured, and £3.5 million in damages, except none of it was real. It had all been a counter-terrorism training drill designed to test River. Even the casualty numbers were fabricated. Still, his disastrous performance marked the end of his career as a frontline agent. He was exiled to MI5's dumping ground, Slough House. Slough House was run by Jackson Lamb, a sloppy, chain-smoking man who looked every bit the washed-up has-been. His hair was unkempt, his clothes wrinkled, his socks full of holes, and his office reeked of stale takeout and cigarette smoke. Yet despite appearances, Lamb had once been a legendary spy. Everyone else at Slough House was there because of failure. Aside from Lamb and now River, they were all cast-offs, discarded agents MI5 had no use for. River's daily routine quickly became sifting through trash and enduring Lamb's constant ridicule. The humiliation only fueled his determination to prove himself. Then came a rare assignment: surveillance on a journalist named Hobden. Once a well-known reporter, Hobden was now disgraced and irrelevant. Still, Lamb sent his most capable agent, Sid, to get close to him and copy data from his USB drive. In a London cafe, Sid managed to sit beside Hobden. Pretending to borrow his newspaper, she accidentally spilled coffee on him. As Hobden went to get napkins, she slipped his USB into her laptop, downloaded the files at lightning speed, and returned it before he noticed. Mission accomplished. Sid reported back to Lamb, with River overhearing. That's when he realized this wasn't just busywork. The order had come directly from MI5. Why would headquarters care about a washed-up journalist? Clearly, something bigger was at play. River saw an opportunity. If he could help crack this case, maybe he'd earn his way back. Fired up with determination, he swore to make the most of it. After securing the data, Lamb called Diana, but with her usual arrogance, she dismissed it, saying she wouldn't waste her top agent's time on such trivial errands. She told Lamb to have his underlings deliver it instead. Meanwhile, River was still digging through Hobden's trash when he heard heavy footsteps above, a signal from Lamb. When River went upstairs, he was given the task, deliver Hobden's laptop, now loaded with the copied files, directly to MI5. It was the break he'd been waiting for, and though the recipient was Webb, the very man whose blunder had ruined him, River didn't hesitate to accept. In an empty park, River slipped into a restroom, wrapped his injured hand in bandages, and forced open the blast-proof case. He managed to extract the files from the laptop inside. When he arrived at MI5 headquarters, River was stopped at the gate. Slough House operatives weren't even recognized as official staff. Their names didn't appear on any roster. To the rest of MI5, Slough House agents weren't real agents at all. After securing a temporary pass, River headed to Webb's office. The familiar surroundings reminded him bitterly that, if not for Webb's betrayal, this office could have been his. Old grudges surfaced immediately. River reminded Webb that he once took the fall for him, but Webb had never admitted his mistake. Worse, he'd stabbed River in the back. Webb sneered, calling River a fraud who only kept his job thanks to family connections. Without his grandfather's influence, Webb said, River would have been out of MI5 long ago. Leaving headquarters, River drove to his grandfather's house. The old man was once a high-ranking MI5 officer, respected and influential. One look at River's injured hand, and he knew immediately that his grandson had broken into a blast-proof case. River admitted it. He'd copied files from the laptop of a washed-up journalist named Hobden. It was an assignment directly from MI5, and if he pulled it off, he might earn his way back to headquarters. River asked what his grandfather knew about Hobden. With his wealth of knowledge, the old man explained that Hobden had once been famous, practically a household name, but after MI5 revealed his ties to far-right politicians, he was shunned, disgraced, and vanished from journalism altogether. His grandfather warned him, if headquarters cared about Hobden, it was serious. MI5 had dumped the case on Slough House because they didn't want the blowback. If things went wrong, the whole agency could be dragged into scandal. He urged River to let it go. But River was resolute. This was his one chance to prove himself. Elsewhere in London, Hobden was on the phone. From the conversation, it was clear he had intel on an upcoming terrorist plot, but the way he pleaded showed just how far he'd fallen. No one was taking him seriously anymore. Meanwhile, a young boy, fresh from performing stand-up comedy at school, walked home alone. As he passed a van, several masked men jumped out, grabbed him, and sped away without hesitation. The next morning, River arrived at the office early. He asked Roddy, the team's resident computer whiz, to decrypt Hobden's files, but instead of classified documents, the laptop revealed only a string of numbers. Looking closer, River realized it was the digits of pi. His excitement collapsed into disappointment. Hobden had set a trap. It was bait. River realized Hobden must have known someone would try to steal his data. Sid walked by and caught River snooping. She urged him to drop it. This was headquarters' problem, not theirs. But before their argument could go further, breaking news flashed across the TV. A university student had been kidnapped. The abductors arrogantly revealed themselves as the far-right group Sons of Albion. They live-streamed the incident online, vowing to behead the young man, Hassan, at sunrise the next day. The Slough House agents gathered around the screen, buzzing with speculation. To them, it was obvious, the kidnapping tied directly to the far-right group, and perhaps to the very reason MI5 had them watching Hobden. Lamb mocked his team, calling them fools for overestimating themselves. The kidnapping, he said, would be handled by MI5's top agents. It wasn't their place. He ordered everyone back to the office and warned them not to ask questions. But River, desperate to prove himself, wasn't about to let the chance slip away. By the time Lamb noticed his absence, River was already at an upscale barbershop in London. He wanted to confront Webb directly, to see if the Hobden files he delivered contained anything useful. Webb was enjoying a leisurely trim when River suddenly appeared, catching him off guard. River pressed him about the files. Did they contain any leads? Were they connected to the kidnapping? Webb smirked and refused to answer. Out of options, River swallowed his pride, playing the fool. He called himself a slow horse, a nobody. Webb, falling into the trap, let slip that the files had nothing of value. Meanwhile, at MI5 headquarters, staff were working overtime. Deputy Director Diana convened an emergency meeting with all department heads. The investigation revealed details about the hostage, Hassan, born in Birmingham to grandparents who immigrated in the early 1970s. Hassan was now a second-year business student at the University of Leeds. He had no romantic relationships, was a law-abiding British Asian Muslim, and seemed completely ordinary. Diana added that MI5 was monitoring 17 far-right groups, including Sons of Albion, which had been under surveillance for a year. Just then, Diana received an urgent call and stepped out. Her aide handed her fresh intel. After reading it, she muttered to herself, "This kidnapping wasn't random, they needed to contact the Pakistani ambassador immediately." At Slough House, Lamb kept asking his assistant Catherine whether River had returned. The moment she spotted him, she was to drag him straight to Lamb's office. Lamb insisted he'd rather have his team sit idle than risk getting involved in the kidnapping. But Catherine noticed something unusual. Lamb, a notorious drinker, hadn't touched alcohol all day. He seemed unusually fixated on River's whereabouts and intent on keeping his agents away from the case. Her instincts told her something big was brewing. Back at Slough House, River wasn't giving up. He enlisted Roddy to hack Hobden's email, hoping to uncover new information, but there was nothing, no cloud storage, no social media, no trace online. Hobden lived completely offline, old-fashioned and cautious. The strangeness only deepened River's conviction. The mission was about more than surveillance. Before leaving, Roddy shared his theory. Hobden looked like the kind of man who'd keep thermite on hand. Thermite, a mixture of aluminum, iron oxide, and magnesium, could be kept in a clay pot beside a laptop. If danger struck, Hobden could use it to instantly destroy his computer. If River wanted the files, he had to act fast. The warning struck home. River rummaged through Hobden's trash and soon found traces of thermite ingredients. Hobden was indeed careful, too careful. He clearly knew something worth hiding. Later, when River returned to the office, Catherine slipped out for a walk and reported back to Lamb. Everyone was accounted for, except Moody, who had gone out for a security check and never returned. At Slough House, River wasn't the only one with ambition. Moody, too, had big plans. He secretly arranged a meeting with Diana at an empty stadium. There, he revealed he had planted a listening device in Lamb's office. To climb the ladder, Moody offered to share all the intelligence he picked up. He went on to disparage Lamb, mocking his incompetence and venting his own frustration at being stuck in a dead-end post. After some thought, Diana handed him a one-way phone. He could only call her. She assigned him a few secret tasks and promised that, if successful, she would bring him back to headquarters. Before leaving, Diana reminded him to remove the bug. Lamb, after all, had once been one of MI5's top agents. He deserved at least that much respect. Cut to a rundown house in London, where the kidnappers were sipping tea and watching the news. Their leader mocked Curly, the youngest member. Boasting of his own war experience, he sneered that Curly only knew strategy on paper. When asked if he had ever killed anyone, Curly admitted he'd only done it in video games. The leader laughed with contempt, bragging that he had killed 5 men at close range, watching them die before his eyes. Humiliated, Curly seethed inside. Then, from the basement, the hostage called out needing the toilet. No one wanted the dirty job, so the leader ordered Curly to handle it. But he didn't want the hostage sharing their bathroom. He told Curly to just give Hassan a bucket. Instead, Curly went upstairs, removed a loose tile beneath the sink, and retrieved a hidden phone. He quickly sent a message, replaced the phone, and reset the tile before heading back down, pretending he couldn't find a bucket. Elsewhere, in a cafe, Hobden was frantically making calls, trying to sell what he claimed was critical intel, but disgraced and discredited, no one wanted to listen. Across the street, River watched from a distance, convinced Hobden was sitting on something big. When Hobden stormed out, River tailed him, but the cautious journalist soon spotted the pursuit and tossed his phone into a trash bin. River grimaced at the stench but picked it up anyway. Hobden tried to shake him by weaving through squares, corridors, and finally a crowded train station. River kept his eyes locked, blending into the crowd. But just as Hobden passed through a turnstile, a bus pulled up, blocking River's view. Hobden climbed aboard and rode away, visibly nervous, scanning his surroundings. River, a few seconds too late, could only watch the bus pull off, but he wasn't done. When Hobden switched buses, thinking he was clever, River was already waiting on the next one. Meanwhile, at MI5 headquarters, Diana directed the tech team to analyze the kidnappers' livestream. They noted the absence of light behind Hassan, bare walls, and bricks typical of London. Diana suggested narrowing the search to homes worth around £3.5 million. The technicians refined it further. Based on the mortar and the brickwork, they could pinpoint the era and region. Their conclusion, Victorian architecture. Hassan was likely in a basement. Diana ordered non-stop work until the hostage was found. Down in that basement, a masked kidnapper in a black hood pulled out a knife, pressing it toward Hassan. The terrified student shook uncontrollably. But to Hassan's surprise, the masked kidnapper didn't hurt him. He simply cut the tape binding Hassan's wrists. Before leaving, the man warned him, it was only so Hassan could move around the room more easily. If he called for help, the sensor light would switch from green to red, and he would be executed on the spot. That night, London buzzed quietly with secret movements. River kept watch near Hobden's house, waiting for the right moment to sneak in and steal his laptop. Just as he was focused, his car door suddenly opened. It was Sid. River was startled, demanding to know why she was there. Sid coolly replied that while he was shadowing Hobden, she had been shadowing him, and he hadn't even noticed. Boasting of her superior surveillance skills, Sid pressed him for updates. River explained Hobden's paranoia. In his trash, he found steel wool and a rusty coffee filter, materials that could be used to make iron oxide, one of the ingredients for thermite. Paranoid types often kept such mixtures to torch their computers if threatened. Meanwhile, in the basement, Hassan accidentally kicked over a metal canister, the loud clang freezing him in fear. But nothing happened, no footsteps upstairs, no red warning light. Realizing the kidnappers had only bluffed, Hassan began scanning the room, gathering courage to find a way out. Elsewhere, the rest of the Slough House misfits wrapped up another pointless day. Loy, Louisa, and Harper each made excuses to leave early. By coincidence, Louisa and Harper ended up at the same pub. After a few drinks, they opened up about their regrets. Harper confessed he had once left top-secret files on a train, the blunder that got him banished to Slough House. Worse, his wife hadn't supported him, she'd filed for divorce. To Harper, both his career and family were failures. Louisa recalled her time at MI5 headquarters, when she had felt invisible, overlooked by everyone. When she was demoted, those same colleagues ignored her completely. Only in downfall, she said, could you truly see people's hearts? Back in the car, Sid's phone buzzed with a call from Aunt Zadie. She brushed it off, claiming she was still on surveillance. River pressed her. Why was she really following him? Sid hesitated, fumbling for an excuse. Aunt Zadie was just a code name, she claimed. River kept pushing until Sid finally admitted the truth. Aunt Zadie was none other than Diana, MI5's deputy director. Unlike the others exiled to Slough for their failures, Sid had been sent there by Diana to secretly monitor River. Stunned, River asked again if she was joking. Sid looked him in the eye and said, I'm not. At that moment, a shadowy figure appeared at Hobden's front door. River and Sid instantly dropped the conversation and sprang into action. According to their plan, River slipped in through the back while Sid covered the front. Inside, River heard the sounds of a struggle. He grabbed a frying pan from the kitchen as an improvised weapon and crept toward the living room. There, he saw Hobden being strangled by a man in black. On the floor, Hobden's laptop was already burning, thermite eating through it with small explosions. Taking advantage of the chaos, Hobden broke free and bolted out the back door. River launched himself at the intruder, but the man was more skilled. Within seconds, River was knocked to the ground, defeated. Just as the masked intruder was about to slip out the front door, Sid blocked his way and engaged him in a fight. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out. River, wounded but determined, staggered to his feet to check on her. To his horror, Sid had been shot in the head. She lay bleeding on the floor, while the masked man vanished into the night. Panicked, River called for an ambulance. Would Sid survive? Who was the masked attacker? And what hidden secrets lay behind this tangled web? At a pub, Louisa and Harper watched the latest kidnapping updates on TV over beers. Outwardly, they wore the MI5 badge of prestige, but inside they knew the truth. They were nobodies in the most despised department. Both felt helpless. A few drinks in, Harper voiced a daring idea. What if Lamb's office contained files about the kidnapping? If they could find a lead and save the hostage, they'd finally be respected. Louisa agreed. They downed their last sips and returned to Slough House under the cover of night. Fueled by alcohol, the two shared a kiss at the stairwell, but the moment was shattered by a sudden noise upstairs. Louisa sensed something was wrong. It had come from Lamb's office. They crept up cautiously. Inside, they found a corkboard covered in sticky notes lying on the floor. Could someone else be there? They searched carefully, finding nothing. But just as they let their guard down, a figure in black burst from a back door, shoving Harper aside and bolting down the stairs. Harper gave chase, tackling him. Both tumbled down the stairwell. When Louisa reached them, the man in black was dead, his neck broken in the fall. Pulling back his hood, they were stunned to see it was Moody. Why had Moody been sneaking into Lamb's office at midnight? Shocked and confused, Louisa and Harper stared at the lifeless body, unsure what to do. Elsewhere, after Sid was shot, River called emergency services and MI5. Sid was rushed into surgery, while River was locked in a hospital storeroom under guard. Outside, agents phoned in updates to their superiors. Inside, River searched frantically for anything useful. He found only a burlap sack. Improvising, he stuffed his leather shoes into it, fashioning a crude weapon. Flattening himself against the door, he listened intently. Suddenly, a violent fight broke out outside. Peering through the crack, River saw someone approaching. He clenched the sack, ready to strike, but when the door opened, it was Lamb, dragging River out. Lamb scolded him by calling an ambulance. River had exposed his location, that was why MI5 operatives had shown up. River protested. If he hadn't called an ambulance, was he supposed to just stand there and watch his partner die? Then he demanded to know how Lamb even found him at the hospital. Lamb admitted he had been shadowing River himself, in case the young agent pulled another reckless stunt. As they left, a strike team dispatched by Diana arrived at the hospital storeroom. Their leader phoned her, reporting that River had already been taken away, likely by Lamb. Diana ordered Lamb brought to her immediately. On the drive back, Lamb pressed River for answers. What had really happened that night, and why were he and Sid at Hobden's place? River explained that Hobden's laptop held something MI5 wanted, and he suspected Hobden was tied to the kidnapping. Sid, he added, had only been there because she was ordered to watch him. Lamb then asked who shot Sid. River said he couldn't see. The attacker wore black, hooded, and moved like a professional. Stranger still, the man never spoke a word, as if terrified his identity might slip. When they reached Slough House, they found Moody lying motionless on the stairs. Lamb turned to River and said coldly, "There's your answer." Moments later, Louisa and Harper arrived and confessed everything. Searching Moody's body, Lamb uncovered a recently removed bug and 2 phones. Oddly, one could only make outgoing calls. River suggested dialing it. A familiar voice answered. Lamb told the caller Moody wouldn't be picking up again, and they needed to meet in person. Before long, Diana arrived at the rendezvous. She demanded to know what Lamb was up to, but he shot back, "That's my question for you." He laid it bare. Sid, the agent MI5 had planted to monitor River, had been shot at Hobden's house. The shooter was Moody, an operative sent by Diana. Now Sid was fighting for her life, and Moody was dead. Stunned, Diana asked how Moody had died. Lamb replied flatly, he didn't tie his shoelaces, fell down the stairs and broke his neck. Then he brandished Moody's confiscated phone, forcing Diana to come clean. Cornered, Diana confessed, the entire kidnapping scandal was her doing. She had 2 goals. First, to cripple the far right and sway public opinion against them. Second, to rescue Hassan, grandson of Pakistan's deputy intelligence chief, and secure international goodwill for herself and Britain. To ensure success, Diana even embedded a sleeper agent among the kidnappers, tasked with saving Hassan right before the execution. The plan was airtight, until she and her brother were overheard by Hobden. Fearing he might have recorded them, she had dumped the problem on Slough House. Now, with less than 4 hours before Hassan's scheduled beheading, Diana revealed the hostage was being held in an old house across the river. She needed Lamb to go there and knock on the door. Seeing Lamb, her insider would understand and keep Hassan safe until the rescue team arrived. Lamb refused, unwilling to wade into the mess, but Diana threatened him, reminding him that Catherine, his assistant, had once committed a serious crime. If Lamb didn't cooperate, Catherine would face charges of treason. And that was when Lamb's true nature shone through. For all his sarcasm and disdain, deep down he genuinely cared for his team, and he would protect them, no matter what. For Catherine's sake, Lamb accepted Diana's mission, but on one condition: she had to erase all evidence of Catherine's past crimes, and even cover up Moody's death. Diana scoffed, "I didn't think you actually cared about your people." Lamb shot back, "I call them useless, but they're my useless ones." Meanwhile, Hobden, still shaken, knocked on the door of a wealthy family, begging for shelter, but they looked at him with disdain, unwilling to associate with such a disgraced man. Desperate, Hobden claimed he'd just been targeted by an MI5 agent because he possessed vital intelligence. The man didn't care. In panic, Hobden reminded him of the past, that when he was still a famous journalist, he had protected this man's reputation, never writing a critical story. Now it was time to repay the favor. Infuriated, the man punched Hobden to the floor and ordered his guards to throw him out. Cut to an old riverside house. Only 4 hours remained before dawn. Inside, Black, the gang's leader and Diana's undercover operative, sat watching TV with his men. Black suddenly realized he had shut off the basement's listening device earlier to avoid distractions. Downstairs, Hassan was prying at wooden boards, trying to escape, but a plank cracked loudly, and the kidnappers rushed down, dragging him back. To prevent another attempt, Black ordered them to hood Hassan and keep him upstairs under guard. Back at MI5, Lamb and Diana finalized their uneasy alliance. Lamb returned to lead River, Louisa, and Harper into action, while Diana briefed Duffy, head of security, and the rapid response team. At the hideout, Black calmly played cards with 2 kidnappers, even checking that Hassan could breathe under the hood. But then someone asked, where was Curly? He hadn't been seen in a while. After a round of jokes, they dismissed it. Soon, Curly appeared from upstairs. When questioned, Black sneered, probably upstairs crying. Curly swallowed his anger, claiming he'd just been thinking. Then, to everyone's shock, Curly picked up an axe and strutted toward Hassan. "One swing," he boasted, "and his head will be on the floor." Black quickly stopped him, snapping that killing the hostage would ruin everything. Curly shot back, Why would that ruin it?" His voice edged with suspicion. Black threatened to report him to the organization as a liability. Cornered, Curly set the axe down, but the moment they relaxed, he swung it into Black instead. Moments later, River and his team arrived. After knocking repeatedly with no reply, dread-filled River. He and Lamb forced the door open, only to find carnage, blood everywhere. Black's body lay decapitated. The hostage and kidnappers were gone. The grisly scene made River rush outside to vomit. Louisa and Harper, however, stayed composed. Lamb predicted Diana would pin Black's death on Slough House to shield headquarters. He seized everyone's phones and dumped them down a sewer, then ordered River to collect Roddy while he retrieved Catherine. Reuniting at a cemetery, River revealed he had seen Black before. As they left, Duffy arrived with his squad. He reported back to Diana. Black, their embedded operative, was dead. The hostage and kidnappers had vanished. Forensics estimated Black had died 20 minutes earlier. Diana asked, "Was Lamb there?" Duffy replied, "His car was, but he wasn't." At the crime scene, investigators found forced entry marks on the back door, proof Lamb hadn't been alone. Neighbors also reported seeing several people together. Just then, Diana's aide arrived with an urgent call from the director. Diana ordered Duffy to seal off the area, clean up everything, and return to HQ. She blamed the failure on Lamb's negligence. The director's response was ruthless. "If it's caused by subordinates, kill them." After hanging up, Diana instructed Duffy to take Webb and track Lamb down. Meanwhile, the three kidnappers were on the run. Two of them berated Curly for murdering one of their own. Curly argued he'd hidden a burner phone, making them untraceable. He insisted Black had been a mole, a traitor, and if he hadn't acted, they'd already be caught or shot dead. He called it self-defense. The others, however, had only wanted money. They never signed up to kill. They now wanted to release the hostage, but Curly refused. Fearing Hassan had seen their faces and heard their voices, the three clashed bitterly. Elsewhere, Lamb bought a beggar's old hat for £20 and slipped into an internet cafe. Half an hour later, Duffy and Webb arrived, following CCTV footage, but Lamb had already gone. On the computer he used, they found a ticket booked to Istanbul. While Duffy reported this to Diana, Webb noticed Lamb had also booked flights to Heathrow, London, Birmingham, and Stansted. He was throwing up decoys to confuse MI5. Knowing Lamb too well, Diana was certain he'd head to Catherine. She ordered Duffy and Webb straight to her house. Catherine, asleep, was startled by knocking. Gripping a glass bottle as a weapon, she warned the stranger, but it was Lamb's voice outside. Relieved, she let him in. Lamb explained that Diana planned to pin the failed rescue on Slough House, and they needed to get out immediately. As Catherine packed, 2 messages from Diana popped up on her phone, one accusing Lamb of treason, the other about a man named Patna. Diana claimed she knew the truth about Patna's death, that Lamb had covered it up. Catherine's face betrayed her personal link to Patna. Shaken, she confronted Lamb, but he dismissed it as Diana's manipulation. He gave her a choice, come with him or stay behind. After a pause, Catherine decided to go with him, but as they descended the stairs, Duffy and Webb appeared. A quick search showed Lamb carried no weapons. The agents promptly arrested both and took them to HQ. Elsewhere, Lamb's 3 subordinates, River, Louisa, and Harper, were searching for allies. Before splitting up, Louisa voiced fears that Lamb might abandon them. River reassured her. Lamb wasn't that kind of man. He had just saved River from MI5 agents. River left midway while Louisa and Harper headed to Loy's house. They arrived just as MI5 operatives were hauling him away. Thinking fast, the pair disguised themselves as a couple kissing outside, slipping past unnoticed. Loy was dragged to MI5's prison, where Diana tried to coerce him into saying he had seen Black meeting with Lamb. Loy, however, stood firm, refusing to betray Lamb. Frustrated, Diana cast him aside. Meanwhile, River hurried to Roddy's flat. At the same time, another MI5 operative had been sent to arrest the hacker. Oblivious, Roddy was admiring his own muscle selfies. When the agent arrived downstairs, River was already there. Luckily, the operative knocked on the wrong door. River quickly grabbed Roddy, and together they stole a car, driving to the rendezvous point Lamb had set. On the way, Roddy asked how River had found him. He had hacked MI5's employee system long ago, setting his address, phone, and even bank details to change every 24 hours. Not even he could track himself. River explained, it had to be Lamb. He must have shadowed Roddy before and passed the address along. River then asked Roddy to dig into the kidnapping case. Within minutes, Roddy unearthed a clue. One of the suspects had once declared, "For my country, I'll kidnap an Asian kid and cut off his head." The man who said it Black, an MI5 operative who had worked at Slough House. Their car soon pulled up to a hospital. River wanted to check on Sid, who had taken a bullet to the head. He told Roddy, "Wait 5 minutes, if I'm not back, leave." To visit patients, River had to scan his face at the entrance, exposing his presence. An MI5 agent tailed him instantly. Nervous in the car, Roddy watched the clock tick down. With River still missing, he panicked and drove off. Inside, River stood by Sid's bed. Snippets of their last conversation replayed in his mind. Suddenly, it clicked. During that botched training exercise, he hadn't misheard the intel at all. It had been Diana's setup. She had deliberately sabotaged him because he'd once spied on her. Alarmed, River turned to leave, only to run straight into an agent. A chase erupted. River bolted downstairs, the agent on his heels. He slipped into a freight elevator, slamming the door shut. The agent waited calmly below, confident River was trapped, but River exited early through another floor. As the agent prepared to grab him when the doors opened, River crept up from behind with a fire extinguisher and smashed it into his face, knocking him cold. Racing outside, River realized Roddy was gone. With no choice, he sprinted toward the rendezvous on foot. Back at MI5, Diana learned Lamb and Catherine had been captured. She taunted Loy, saying she'd make sure Lamb confessed, and she'd tell Loy's wife the truth. He hadn't worked at HQ for years, but had been dumped at Slough House, now under suspicion in Black's death. The jab cut deep. Loy had indeed been demoted for crossing the wrong superior. To keep peace at home, he had hidden the truth, clinging to his polished facade. Diana's words broke him. He caved, agreeing to recall and share whatever she wanted. Meanwhile, in the transport van, Lamb faked a coughing fit and asked Catherine for tissues. Reaching into her bag, she froze. There was a gun. She glanced at Lamb. He nodded. Catherine drew the weapon and aimed it at Webb, who was driving. Lamb had stashed his gun in her purse, anticipating the search. Now armed, they forced Duffy and Webb out of the vehicle and drove off toward the rendezvous point. Elsewhere, the rest of Slough House raced to the cemetery. Could these discarded agents survive the storm, and would Hassan still be alive? Previously, the nationwide kidnapping that shook Britain was a government charade gone awry. The undercover agent Black was dead, Hassan was missing, and Diana was ready to scapegoat Slough House. With the clock ticking, could these outcasts turn the tables? One by one, the Slough agents arrived at the cemetery, all but Loy, who was in custody. Breathless, River told Lamb he remembered where he'd seen Black before, back at MI5, during a training exercise, when he had spied on Diana and caught her meeting Black secretly in a gym. If they could recover that photo, it would prove Diana's link to Black and clear Slough House of all blame. Hearing about the photo, Lamb immediately set out with River to find a copy. He warned the others not to act recklessly, better to hide somewhere safe than risk arrest. He then drove back to Slough House, standing guard outside while River slipped in. Inside, River grabbed Hobden's phone, slipped a clock into a box of wires, then swapped clothes with a dead body. With that done, they split up, heading toward MI5 headquarters. Meanwhile, Roddy, Catherine, Harper, and Louisa ducked into a diner. Harper voiced his fear that Lamb didn't care about them, that if things went south, he'd abandon them. Catherine cut him off, reminding them, "Lamb once said, 'Anyone who lays a hand on my agents, I won't forgive them.'" Roddy chimed in confidently. They were safe. He had hacked MI5's tracking systems and could monitor every operative's location. Back at MI5, analysts discovered footage of Black's death. 10 cars had passed the scene. Catherine suggested retracing Black's trail. Everyone contributed thoughts until Roddy uncovered that Black had been using a false identity. Recently, under that alias, he'd purchased a car. The group suspected it had been used in the kidnapping. To learn the plate number, Catherine phoned the dealership, pretending to be a panicked customer who only remembered the driver's name. The staff unwittingly revealed the plate. Armed with the lead, the team decided to tail the vehicle themselves. Elsewhere, Duffy and Webb returned to HQ, reporting how Lamb had forced them out of the car. Diana fumed, demanding why they hadn't searched him first. Webb admitted Lamb had stashed the gun in Catherine's bag. Moments later, tech specialists confirmed the kidnappers' identities through fingerprints at the crime scene. Lamb, meanwhile, drove straight to MI5's gates, demanding to see Diana. Guards hit the alarms. Within minutes, armed soldiers surrounded his car. One knocked on the window, ordering him out. Lamb smirked. "Haven't even warmed the seat yet. I've got business with Diana." Eventually, after Duffy swore there'd be no shooting, Lamb stepped out. In Diana's office, she cut to the chase. Black had ties to Slough House, and she had testimony linking him to Lamb, but if Lamb signed a confession, she promised no prosecution and a hefty retirement payout. Smug as she was, Lamb wasn't beaten. He paused, then casually remarked, "Oh, I just remembered, there's a timed bomb in my trunk." Diana shot to her feet, barking orders at Duffy. Duffy, crouched behind ballistic glass, maneuvered a bomb disposal robot to the car. When the trunk popped open, the feed showed nothing but wires and a clock, no explosives. Duffy cursed loudly. Lamb had tricked them again. As Duffy hurried back, a shadow slipped into the building. Lamb's diversion had worked. River had infiltrated HQ. Realizing he'd been duped, Duffy ordered a floor-by-floor search. Meanwhile, Webb strolled carelessly into his office, only to feel cold steel at his head. River shoved him down. Shocked, Webb recognized his old colleague. River demanded the file Diana had forced him to deliver during the infamous training exercise. Webb denied everything, insisting River had misheard. River cut him off, laying out the truth. Diana had orchestrated it all. Back then, River had caught her secretly meeting Black and snapped a photo. To cover her tracks, she ordered Webb to feed him false intel, giving her the perfect excuse to exile him to Slough House. River knew Diana would order Webb to destroy the photos, but he also knew Webb's nature. He'd never get rid of them without keeping a copy for himself. Grabbing Webb by the collar, River demanded the files. Webb continued to play dumb. Just then, hurried footsteps echoed in the hall. Duffy was leading a squad of armed agents through the building. With no time left, River punched Webb to the ground and frantically searched through his files. It felt like searching for a needle in a haystack, but at the very last second, he found the photos he needed. Before slipping out, he draped a uniform over Webb's body. Moments later, MI5 agents burst in, saw a masked figure unconscious on the floor, and hauled him away, none the wiser. Meanwhile, Diana stormed back to her office with the bomb box Lamb had teased her with. Lamb smirked. Must have forgotten to connect the detonator. Moments later, Diana got a call. Her men reported the intruder had been captured and thrown into holding. Gloating, she pushed Lamb to sign the confession. Your man has already been caught, she sneered. But Lamb leaned back coolly. Did they actually confirm who it was? Diana froze, realizing something was off. Before she could call to verify, River walked straight into the office and tossed a folder onto her desk. Inside were photos of her secretly meeting with Black. Lamb told her those photos tied her directly to the kidnapping plot. If they reached the director, or worse, the press, her career would be over. He added, instead of framing others, maybe focus on saving the hostage. Diana tried to deflect, claiming MI5 had already tailed 3 suspect vehicles, though they'd now lost track. Lamb countered with new intel. Hobden had phoned a man earlier that afternoon, and they still had the phone he tossed away. Lamb was certain Hobden had passed vital information to this man. Find him, Lamb said, and we'll find the hostage. At the same time, the kidnappers were at each other's throats. Curley insisted on finishing the mission, beheading the hostage. The other 2 wanted out, suggesting they release Hassan in some remote spot. The fight escalated until one of them pulled a gun on Curley, forcing him to drive to the docks and set Hassan free. He had secretly taken the weapon from Black's body. With no choice, Curley gave in, but their car was running on fumes, and they were covered in blood. To avoid suspicion, they decided Hassan would be the one to pump gas. On the way, the car's speed made him nauseous. With his mouth taped shut, he began choking. Curley tried to ignore him, but the others forced him to stop and tear the tape off, saving Hassan just in time. At the gas station, Hassan finally breathed fresh air. Having been locked in darkness for so long, the bright lights stung his eyes. He looked around, only their car was there. He picked up the pump and began refueling. Just then, another vehicle pulled in. The kidnappers stiffened. A woman approached Hassan, asking for help with her gas cap. As Hassan turned toward her, his gagged expression made the air grow tense. Sensing her suspicion, the kidnappers hastily explained they were just at a bachelor party and had painted their faces. Hassan knew the truth. If the woman realized what was happening, these men would kill her without hesitation. So, instead of calling for help, Hassan forced a nervous smile. He told her he wasn't the kidnapped student from the news, just someone who looked like him. It's happened to me all day, he joked. Then he walked over to her car and helped her open the fuel cap, playing along to keep her safe. The standoff at the gas station was temporarily diffused, and the kidnappers began to trust Hassan more. Instead of locking him in the trunk, they let him sit in the backseat with his hands free. Curley even demanded Hassan tell them jokes, promising to let him go if he made them laugh. Hassan steadied himself and rattled off several jokes, sending the men into hysterics. Even Curley cracked up, though his laughter carried a sinister edge. But the moment of levity ended abruptly. Curley slammed the brakes, pulled out his gun, and shot one of his partners dead. Smirking, he said, "Now that's funny." Shocked into silence, Hassan and the remaining kidnapper dared not move. With the gun in hand, Curley forced the survivor to drive them to a remote spot, determined to finish the mission by beheading the hostage. Meanwhile, Diana acted on Lamb's advice. Using Hobden's phone records, she tracked down a politician who had ties to Albion's leader, the same man Curley had secretly reported to earlier. under pressure, the man spilled everything, including the kidnapper's escape route. The intel confirmed Lamb's uncanny intuition. But when Diana met Lamb to confront him, she realized his team already had the same information. River had told the others MI5 was no longer targeting Slough House, and they'd regrouped by tracing Roddy's tracker planted on Lamb's car. When Diana demanded to know how they pinpointed the route, Lamb explained that Black had purchased a vehicle under an alias. Roddy hacked its anti-theft tracker, which showed the car speeding along the A12 highway toward Harwich docks. Plans were set. Lamb and River would go one way, Louisa and Harper another, while Diana deployed soldiers to the docks. Out in the countryside, Curly forced everyone out of the car. He ordered them to dump the corpse of his slain accomplice, then handed the bloodstained axe, the same one used on Black, to the last kidnapper, demanding he drag Hassan into the woods. The man pretended to comply, hustling Hassan ahead of Curly. Out of sight, he whispered for Hassan to stay quiet and get ready to run. He cut the ropes, then rushed back to Curly claiming the hostage had escaped. Furious, Curly spun around to look, giving his partner the chance to strike with the axe, but the blow missed. Panicked, the man bolted. Curly fired, hitting him in the side, but he managed to stumble to the car and speed away. Hassan, meanwhile, fled into the forest. Exhausted, he slumped against a tree, only to look up and see Curly aiming a gun straight at him. At the docks, the wounded kidnapper's car arrived, just as Lamb predicted. Diana's men were already waiting. Duffy shouted through a loudspeaker, ordering him to surrender. Realizing there was no escape, he dropped to his knees, hands raised. But when he reached for his bleeding wound, the agents mistook the move as reaching for a weapon. Duffy ordered them to fire. The man was gunned down, but Hassan was nowhere in sight. To cover up the blunder, Duffy planted a gun in the dead man's hand, carefully bagging it as evidence. What he didn't know was that Roddy had witnessed everything and sent photos to Lamb and River. With confirmation the hostage wasn't there, Lamb deduced the plan had changed. He told Roddy to pull the vehicle's stop location data. On the way, Lamb and River linked up with Louisa and Harper, whose car had run out of gas. The four raced against time into the woods, where Hassan's life now hung by a thread. As suspicion lingered, Lamb was convinced this was the kidnapper's final stop. There was even a corpse in the nearby grass. The team spread out to search the woods. River sprinted ahead and spotted a clearing with an abandoned house. Trusting his instincts, he rushed in, and he was right. Inside, Curly was about to kill Hassan, eager to stage the perfect execution for his livestream. Believing death was inevitable, Hassan cursed him. Enraged, Curly shot him in the shoulder. Just as he was about to inflict more pain, River burst in. Distracted, Curly didn't notice Hassan scramble up and smash a rock into his head. Curly went down, unable to fight back. Trembling with fury, Hassan grabbed an axe to finish him off, but River intervened, urging him to let the law take its course. With a primal scream, Hassan hurled the axe aside, unable to deliver the blow. River tied Curly with his belt and dressed Hassan's wound. Louisa and Harper soon arrived. But before they could withdraw, MI5 helicopters descended. Duffy ordered snipers to shoot Curly. Realizing MI5 intended to silence him, Harper stepped forward, signaling Curly was already restrained. They dragged him into cover, forcing Diana to abort the strike. Back at headquarters, the director grilled Diana for failing to eliminate Curly. If he talked, MI5 would be finished. Diana countered that at least the hostage had been saved. The director coldly ordered her to clean up the mess. The Slough House agents returned. Concerned for Sid, River asked Roddy to dig into her status. Roddy reported that all hospital and MI5 records of her had vanished, meaning Sid no longer existed, which, in their world, meant she was alive, hidden away somewhere under protection. Relieved, River finally relaxed. Meanwhile, Hobden tried once more to sell his intel, only to be shoved into traffic and killed. The killer was none other than Duffy, another ruthless cover-up for Diana. Elsewhere, Lamb and Diana exchanged leverage. Lamb handed over photos of her with Black, while Diana gave him evidence tying Catherine to treason. That night, River confided to his grandfather that he wanted to return to MI5 headquarters. He argued the airport debacle wasn't his fault, it was Diana's scheme, and he had proven himself in the hostage rescue, but his grandfather warned him not to be naive. Even the best agents rise and fall. Back at Slough House, Lamb pulled Catherine's file. Padna, the man Diana used as leverage, was her late husband. Ever since his suicide in the bathroom, Catherine had suspected foul play. After the mission, she demanded answers. Lamb admitted the gun Padna used was his, and claimed Padna had asked him for help, drowning in Cold War debts and seeing no way out. But was Lamb telling the truth? His memory revealed otherwise. Lamb himself forced Padna's head underwater, then shot him, staging the scene as suicide. Afterward, he reported to his superior, who turned out to be none other than River's grandfather. Season 1 of Slow Horses closes here, leaving audiences with burning questions. What does River's grandfather truly know? Can River, still green, make it back to MI5 headquarters? And what secrets is Lamb still hiding beneath his jaded facade? We'll have to wait for Season 2 to find out. That's it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.